Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Jake's Draft. This is a brand new show that I've cooked up where I take a look at finales of television shows, and I see if I could steer the metaphorical ship. And together, we'll find out if my finale is a Titanic flop. For the very first episode of Jake's Draft, I wanted to take a look at a show that was basically my childhood, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. But before we can get into the fun stuff, we have to set the scene with some very important Jake's Draft ground rules. First rule, nothing that I write can retcon anything that was established in a previous episode. For example, I can't reference in my finale Arwen getting hurt or killed in a previous episode because that didn't happen, or I can't set up relationships that we haven't really seen established before, because that wouldn't seem fair. Second rule, I have to use the resources that the writers would have had to work with back in the day. For example, at no point in time can Maddie pull out her iPhone 13 to Google a problem. For my third and currently final rule, I have to write with the same knowledge that the writers would have had back in the day. This means that even though that I know that The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody is followed up by The Sweet Life on Deck, the writers back then would have had no idea that that show would have been picked up, which means I can't write my finale having The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, merge perfectly with The Sweet Life on Deck. That is ideal, but it's unrealistic, so I can't do it. Now, the first thing that we want to do with a story that already has an established cast is we want to take the characters and we want to put them aside. We want to find out exactly who we have to work with, and then only then we'll be able to find out how their stories end. Like, do we want a character to have everything that they've ever wanted come true, or does their story end with a heaping helping of humble pie? So, in this finale, we need to cover Zack, Cody, Carrie, Mr. Mosby, Arwen, Esteban, Maddie, London, Nia, Millicent, and Muriel. I know there were other super important characters that fell by the wayside, like Norman the Doorman, Patrick, Irene, Chef Paolo, Lance, including Zack and Cody's school friends like Barbara, Bob, Max, Tapeworm, the twins, Janice and Jessica, and even the boy's father, Kurt. If I could fit them in naturally, I will, but the finale of the show should be the essence wrapped up in a nice, beautiful bow, and the essence of the show was always the hotel. From pilot to finale, the show has been about one thing: the Martins in a hotel. In a way, the hotel is basically a character all by itself, and that lobby set was peak design for early 2000s Disney. For that reason and that reason alone, I've taken all the school characters and I put them on the back burner. Max and Tapeworm were such a big part of season 1, but they kind of fell by the wayside and were forgotten long before the finale, so they're out by default. We got Barbara, Bob, Janice, and Jessica, and they're main players in Zack and Cody's life, but they're small peanuts in the grand scheme of the hotel, so they probably won't make an appearance in my finale. The reason I have Chef Paolo, Patrick, and Lance sidelined is because they work in very specific parts of the hotel. So if they're going to make an appearance in the finale, I would have to find a way to naturally take the characters and the plot to the pool, the restaurant, and the kitchen, respectively, and I just don't see this doing that. Norman the Doorman and Irene will probably be present in the lobby, but as far as fleshed out characters go, they just aren't it. They don't really have any speaking lines, maybe one or two throughout the run of the show, so I think if I'm going to give the finale to anybody else, it's going to be to the more established characters, but that said, they probably will be basically background fodder, like always. Kurt is in the same boat as the friends from school. I can appreciate the character, and I would love nothing more than to write it so that the boys' parents get back together, but I just don't see it mattering in terms of the essence of the show, and therefore it doesn't mean anything in the bigger picture, so he won't be making an appearance. Now that we know who our sideline characters are, let's have a look at our main cast of core characters, our must-haves. We got Zack, Cody, Carrie, and Mr. Mosby. They need to be in every episode. Arwen and Esteban have enough character built into them to want to see how their stories conclude. After all, Arwen and Mr. Mosby are basically the pseudo-father figures for most of the run of the show. They teach the boys about responsibility, respect, healthy work habits, and Esteban is consistently getting into hijinks with the boys, at least in the earlier episodes. London's father owns the hotel, and London lives in the penthouse. And London even acts as a voice for the hotel, in a sense. We know that because she comes and goes on these trips all the time, that business is good. She very rarely has a bad day, and mentally she's down in the same age range as Zack and Cody. But because of this, it doesn't feel weird when she ends up in their business or hangs out with them. It just feels like friends hanging out. But the point is, London is so much of the show, and the hotel is literally her family name. It would be a crime to not include her in the finale. Maddie is a little more complicated. Ashley Tisdale really hit her Disney stride around season 2. So for the most part, between season 2 and 3, she kind of just blips in and out whenever it's convenient. We know enough about her to want to give her a proper send-off, but she was just so absent in season 3 that I can't help but wonder if people totally forgot she was a part of the show until she walked into a room randomly. Don't get me wrong, Maddie Fitzpatrick is synonymous with the sweet life of Zack and Cody, but when she stopped being able to show up for every episode, they probably should have seriously considered finding a way to write her out of the show. It would have felt far less jarring to have her story end early and have her move away at the beginning of season 3. That would have made plenty of room for the new characters, which we'll talk about right now. Nia and Millicent. These two are even harder to decide on. Nia feels like she genuinely needs to be in the finale. She started to fill so many voids that Maddie left behind. She started being a role model to Zack and Cody, like teaching them not to take any crap from bullies. She was London's friend. She was such a refreshing source of confidence that the show didn't have before. She was even connected to Mr. Mosby by the old family tree. Millicent was brought in around the same time as Nia to replace Maddie as the candy counter girl, and this one is a little bit baffling. The actress did a fantastic job playing a totally neurotic mental case, but why not just have Nia fill that void too? I mean, if my memory serves correct, she does take over at the candy counter as well. They have two girls working there. Millicent didn't have very much character and was mostly just brought in to be everybody's punching bag. But they did bring her in late in the game, and they did have her fill a pretty important role covering the candy counter, which is a main part of the lobby. So I'll do my best to wrap her up the best I can. Last but certainly not least, Muriel. Muriel is another tough one, as we haven't really seen her since all the way back in season 1. The problem with Muriel is that she's such a good character. She's one of those parental characters where she's got a job at the Tipton, even though she doesn't do it the best. She still helps keep the episodes grounded because there's always that parental figure that the boys are afraid of being caught by or whatever. That keeps everything grounded. It keeps the showrunners from jumping the shark. You can really feel the difference between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 had a lot more Muriel, Mr. Mosby, Arwen, Carrie, and those characters make it impossible to jump the shark. With season 2, it feels more like a children's wish fulfillment show, which I'm not knocking the writers because that's their audience. They were playing to this. It's a kid show, right? I gotta say though, even as a kid, I still felt the difference. There was a very clear paradigm shift when the parental figures made less and less appearances. There's almost like this whiplash. You would have a really, really goofy thing, but no consequences to follow it up. That said, I would normally make the same argument for Muriel as I did for Max and Tapeworm. You know, just another character that was thrust aside over back in season 1 and they were totally forgot about. But I do genuinely love what they did with the character Muriel in the finale that we did get. I would like to see myself if I can replicate that magical moment, that moment where we see Muriel and we get one last...
I'm not cleaning this up.
I should say that I've known for a while now where I wanted to take the direction of my iteration of the finale. I've known since all the way back in season 1 before I finished my own rewatch of the series, and that's actually where this series got its start. That being said, I know I wanted to have Mr. Tipton show up along with Ilse Schickel-Gubermeier, Todd St. Mark, and Mr. St. Mark. Ilse and Todd are affiliated with the rival St. Mark Hotel across the road from the Tipton. For those who don't remember, Todd was in one episode way back in season 1 where he and London discover that they have a forbidden love, and it was unfortunately not used for anything other than a reference to Romeo and Juliet in the name of the episode, and he never did make a return. He did, however, say that he would be back after his studies in the world of dentistry, and that would be about 8 years.
It'll only take me 8 years to become a dentist. Then I can see you.
I can still work with that, though. Now that we have all of our characters, we can start building the storylines that these characters are going to undertake. This is going to be a very Mosby-heavy episode, as in this finale, the future of the Tipton Hotel is going to be impacted forever, as we the viewers would know it. So with that, let's put Mosby in the worst spot he's ever been in. Mr. Mosby works around the clock, giving his blood, sweat, and tears to the Tipton Hotel. Realistically, a person can only do that for so many years before they start to experience burnout. For the sake of drama, let's say Mr. Mosby's burning the candle at both ends. It's performance review season, and Ilsa's trying to poach employees that go work over at the St. Mark's Hotel, and you got Nia, Maddie, and Millicent fighting over the candy counter hours, and they all want it for something different, and you know what? That could even be the C-plot of this finale. So for the A-plot, we know that Mr. Mosby's going to get assaulted on every front, and that's going to leave him forgetting that the most important performance review is also coming up, his own. Mr. Tipton comes in every year to talk to Mr. Mosby about his performance and earnings and all that boring business stuff. I know that I would like to have Mosby receive a fax from Mr. Tipton, but I'm not sure necessarily whether or not I want to have Ilsa take the fax and hold it out until it's the worst possible time so she could drop a bombshell on Mr. Mosby, or if Mr. Mosby just gets it immediately and starts to freak out. Let's take a break from the A-plot, and you know what? We're actually going to take a jump right over the B-plot, and we're going to talk about the C-plot, which we just brought up a little bit ago. The C-plot will be the most minor plot in this particular story, and we're actually going to use it to help us transition between scenes or help us take a break from the A-plot or the B-plot, whichever way we see fit. The only reason for doing the C-plot now instead of later is because we already know from the little bit we know about the A-plot that the C-plot is going to revolve around Maddie, Nia, and Millicent. Whatever it is these girls are going to be getting up to, it means that they're going to be indisposed. Knowing that they're working towards their own goals means that they won't entirely be involved in either of the other storylines. With that knowledge, we can pluck them out of our roster. Essentially, when the A and B plot are kicking off, we know that none of the characters involved in those will be able to use Maddie, Nia, or Millicent as a resource. As for this big plan for the C plot that I was mentioning earlier, we want Maddie, Nia, and Millicent to fight over hours at the candy counter. Each girl wants something different from this, meaning essentially the girls are fighting over who has the better excuse for getting the hours at the candy counter. To make this as true to each character as we possibly can, let's do a bit of a deep dive into what we know about them. Maddie is an academic. She would love nothing more than to go to college and excel in her studies. We also know that Maddie comes from a poor family, which means the option to use her family for financial aid is not necessarily an option. We also know that the timeline fits so that when the show ends, Maddie would be preparing for post-secondary education. I think it's safe to say that having her want to move on to school or try and save up money for post-secondary education is totally in the realm of possibilities for the character of Maddie Fitzpatrick. Nia's a newer character, but with her family ties with Mr. Mosby, she had plenty of opportunity to let some backstory seep out. We know that Nia was sent to stay under the watchful eye of Mr. Mosby due to her behavioral issues and to learn some responsibility. This is absolutely enough to go off of. See, Nia isn't in very many episodes, but the ones that she is in, she's very quick to learn lessons and become a better person. I don't think it would be far-fetched to say that maybe she likes her new home in Boston. She's made a lot of positive connections and built a framework to live her own life now. Why don't we say that she wants to earn some more hours so that she can save up money to strike out on her own? Get her own apartment without being attached to Mr. Mosby. I know she's still pretty young, but she might as well start saving now, right? Millicent is a whole other problem. She's only in a handful of episodes, and not much about her personal life ever comes out. She spends most of her time on screen being pushed around by other characters, often leading to her fainting. We know on the surface that she's neurotic, stressed out easily, and all around a nervous wreck, with a lot of confidence issues. This being the last episode, it feels the most fitting to squeeze in that if she loses her job at the Tipton, her mom's going to yell at her. And that seems like as good a reason as any to have her putting her foot down. Respectfully, of course. With how stressed Mr. Mosby's going to be in this episode, this C-plot can be started with something as simple as the girls coming up to say, oh, they each need more hours, and Mr. Mosby says, you know what, I got a lot going on, why don't you guys sort it out for once? This opens the script up to at least 4 soft transitions, where we see the girls intertwining with other storylines to state their case and try and get, +1 on the board for them, 1 vote for them. What I mean by this is the girls can be arguing over by the candy counter. Meanwhile, they see Esteban and Mr. Mosby talking over at the front desk there. They can bring the argument over to the front desk where Mr. Mosby and Esteban can shoo them away, and we, the audience, instead of following them back to the candy counter, we can stay on Esteban and Mosby and follow more of the A-plot. Since this is the most minor plot in the story, it's not completely imperative that we see every decision that the girls make. They could have whole conversations off screen, and we could have them as the writers not come back until we need them to. It's not going to affect the story at all, but it only works that way because it's the most minor plot. You couldn't get away with doing this with the A-plot. As a side note, the goal with good storytelling is to often show rather than tell, meaning that specifically with a television audience, they're able to see and hear on both, using both senses. You're entertaining them using both senses. Until it's time for everything to culminate, let's explore the B-plot. For the B-plot, I wanted to explore Todd returning to the show to sweep London off her feet. Let's face it, in the episode where London met Todd, she was a much better person and actually respected and learned a lot about other people's feelings.
But what about us?
Sometimes when you care about someone, you have to think of them before yourself.
Having the Sweet Life not capitalize on having Todd come back, or even returning in the Sweet Life on deck, feels like a huge missed opportunity. To get away from the lobby, I feel like it would be best to start the B-plot up in London's penthouse, and Zack and Cody can be helping London set up for her web show. Maybe she can ask Maddie for help, but Maddie's too busy putting her job first, so London turns to Zack and Cody, who accept the opportunity to help her, for $50 each. That way we're adding a sort of cruel irony to Maddie saying that she's too busy to help London because she has money problems, when London is more than willing to pay her for her time. So back at the penthouse, London will just be getting ready to have Cody hit record and start the broadcast. There's a knock at her door. She can even literally be in the middle of saying that there's nothing on planet Earth that can faze her about, being on camera or whatever. She opens the door, boom. It's Todd in the masquerade mask from the episode that they met in. I could even see a little bit in there where Zack and Cody both think that London's about to get robbed, so Zack is ready to give up all the secrets on where the hidden jewels are that London has, and Cody's ready to hit record to try and catch this crime on camera. London, being a bit of a butt of the joke, can even have this back and forth with Zack and Cody, where Cody goes, "Ah, robber!" And London will do her signature shriek, the really high pitched, "Ee!" And then she'll stop and she'll go, "Wait, who's Robert?" And then Zack and, fill it all out, explain it to her, break it down for her, saying, no, not robber. Or not Robert, robber. And then, he moves in to try and, win the robber over. It's just a little bit of that early 2000s Disney humor, that sort of dumb, the character just simply misheard. That they actually do that pretty well sometimes. But Todd will take his mask off, and London will realize that she is safe. Todd will tell London that he has dropped out of school and wants to spend his days with London, even if it means his dad takes away his fortune. Cody and London will awe, and Zack will make a gagging sound. London will ask about Ilsa, and Todd suggests that they confront her together, but only when the time is right. Until they have their story straight, nobody can find out about them. No parents, no press, no Ilsa or Mosby. Cody will interject with his signature, "Uh-oh," as he reveals that he's been recording the whole thing since he thought that Todd was a criminal. Zack shrugs the whole thing off and says, "Look, there's only 400 people watching. That's nothing. That's basically the people in the hotel." Cody will then point out that it's actually a ratio of 1 to 1,000, so that's 400,000 people watching. Taking a little break to jump back to the A-plot, we'll find Ilsa in the lobby with Esteban trying to pressure him to abandon the Tipton for the St. Mark. Esteban can even be on the fence about it as he tosses the idea back and forth in his head, but he'll really show his loyalty when he sees Mr. Mosby come into the office after doing a performance review with Carrie. We could even have Arwen walking through the lobby at the same time and wind up in the middle of Mr. Mosby, Esteban, Carrie, and Ilsa. Mosby could thank Esteban for his loyalty, and Ilsa could prod back by implying that he put up more of a fight than Paolo. Mosby could fly into a rage, mentioning that Paolo has quit mid-shift twice now and that he's dead to the Tipton Hotel. Carrie will jokingly ask if the St. Mark has an interest in a youngish, fittish singer. Arwen will tell Mosby that he will only stay if Carrie is staying. Ilsa will offer Carrie double what she's getting from the Tipton. Mosby will try to shut Carrie down. Carrie will mention that means 2 rooms, one for her and one for the boys, and she gets all excited at that thought. Ilsa will say something like, "Oh, the boys, I am pulling the offer." Because she's evil. And everyone in the scene gets pulled in separate directions. Carrie heads to the elevators, Ilsa heads to poach Irene, Esteban falls to the floor, and Arwen and Mosby head to his office. This could be a really beautiful, chaotic scene that actually does a couple things. It reminds everybody that Carrie is a Tipton employee, and a pretty important one at that. It reminds everybody that Arwen still has a love that's burning bright for Carrie, and it reminds everybody that Esteban has higher aspirations for himself other than being a bellhop for the rest of his life. And most importantly, I would say, it reminds everybody that Ilsa is still very much a threat to the Tipton Hotel. Anyway, as we see Esteban hit the deck, we see a trolley full of TMZ-style newspapers roll through the lobby. And it's breaking news. London and Todd St. Mark. Zack and Cody can intercept the trolley and take all the newspapers and destroy them. We could even have another cruel irony where things are starting to get heated at the candy counter where the newspapers are being dropped off. And Maddie and Nia are, bickering back and forth, and they don't even notice this trolley of newspapers, leaving it wide open for Zack and Cody to take. And the only person paying attention is Millicent, but she's too mousy to say anything. So she just kind of has to watch this whole thing go down where the twins take this trolley of newspapers and have no idea what to do about it. It will be about this time now that the twins will realize that the shipment should also be hitting the St. Mark at the same time. So now they have to figure out what they're going to do to stop the St. Mark side of things from finding out about the affair. So in an interesting move for the finale, this could actually be the time that we see the inside of the St. Mark for the first time. And I think it'd be really cool if it was literally the Tipton Hotel, but palette swapped. So instead of our ever so familiar green and gold, it's all black and red. And normally, for the candy counter girl, it would take a little bit to offload the newspapers, right? Big, heavy packs of newspapers. Actually, Gretel is working the candy counter over at the St. Mark. For those of you who don't remember who Gretel is, she's actually the huge woman who was in the bowling episode who assaulted Esteban sexually.
Oh no, she's taking me to her cave!
I could see her offloading these stacks of newspapers 4 at a time. Boom, boom, boom. Before you know it, they are on the shelves and they are ready for sale. I also think that it's a funny sort of juxtaposition where we see the St. Mark is all about efficiency. So we got one huge Gretel running the candy counter at the St. Mark, and we see the Tipton has 3 petite girls because they're actually about the appearance. Regardless, the boys can share a moment where Cody goes, oh man, like, now we're in trouble, right? Like that moment where he goes, man, well, things just got hard, something like that. And Zack can hit him with the ever so classic, you think? They do that in all their shows, so this would be an opportune time to bring that one up again. I could even see this whole thing being resolved by Zack going, hey, notice how this is eerily like the Tipton? And Cody could be 2 steps ahead saying, like, yeah, let's go find a vent. And then Zack could go, yeah, but we're going to need a distraction first. It's at this point that I'm noticing that my A-plot and my B-plot are extremely balanced, but just in the wrong ways. The first half of the episode is very, very A-plot heavy. And now that we are heading over the halfway mark, I've noticed that I've done the last few scenes all B-plot, so I might have to figure out a better way when I actually do write the episode to split things up a little bit more, move some scenes around. But that's a problem for the actual writing of the episode, which I will do at a later date. We do a spin transition, which basically means that, it's the same scene, but just a little bit later, and Muriel and Cody are walking up to the candy counter. It's at this point that Muriel and Cody are going to be causing the distraction, while Zack is crawling through the air ducts, just like he would at the Tipton. Zack can have a bird's eye view of the candy counter, and he lowers his fishing line, and he's fishing these stacks of newspapers up into the vents. Now he gets through them all. It could be a whole. This is very dialogue heavy. This is a problem for dialogue. So I'm not gonna do the back and forth there, but there could be some jokes where Gretel is not distracted, or Cody or Muriel says something that is actually going to turn Gretel's attention back towards the thing, and they have to. It could be a whole thing, but there's plenty of opportunities here for the characters to play. Zack gets the last newspaper stack sucked up into the vent as Cody and Muriel will turn away. They'll walk away, and just as Cody can say something like, there, now nobody at either hotel will know anything. They'll be none the wiser. We will hear a creak from the vents, which will collapse with Zack inside as the air duct hits the floor. The newspapers are scattered, just shot out of both sides of this thing, and shot completely around the entirety of the lobby over at the St. Mark. Zack can pop out of the top of the vent and do a silly little one-liner like, oh, silly me, the pool isn't this way, or whatever, and he could pop up, and Cody could pop up, and they could take off out the door. They could make for the door right away, knowing that they are officially busted. Now this is where we get our magical Muriel moment. She will, after the boys leave, walk over to the couch that is inevitably in the lobby. She will plop down on it. She will put her feet on the vent and give us our last.
I'm not cleaning that up.
Back at the Tipton, Mr. Tipton can arrive with his wall of meat, and Mr. Mosby is going to be at his breaking point. Mr. Tipton will take Mr. Mosby into Mosby's office. to have the little sit down for the performance review. At this point, we could do a visual gag where we cut inside the office. Mr. Tipton and Mr. Mosby they're swapped. So Mr. Tipton is sitting on the side of the room that Mr. Mosby would sit on, but he's surrounded. He's still got the wall of meat, but they're all sitting. It's a sitting formation. I think that would be pretty funny. It is at this point that Tipton can point out that Mr. Mosby is looking a little worse for wear these days, and ask him what's going on. Mosby can, for the first time, level with Mr. Tipton, mano a mano. This will be the most heartfelt that Mr. Mosby has ever been, and for once he's not doing it on behalf of Maddie or the twins or London. He's doing it for himself. Mosby will tell Mr. Tipton that he has been the manager of the Tipton Hotel for many, many years. He sleeps, eats, breathes, even bleeds Tipton loyalty. And there's no time to slow down, and he just can't keep going. He will assume that Mr. Tipton is preparing to fire him. But what comes back is actually a suggestion for a promotion. A promotion that will move Mr. Mosby over to the SS Tipton. Remember way back in the beginning when I said one of my rules was that it couldn't fit perfectly into the Sweet Life on Deck? Well, I lied, sort of. You see, they actually introduced the idea of the SS Tipton in the second to last episode of the final season, where Zack and Cody actually trick their mother into thinking that they are going on a family vacation on the SS Tipton, when in fact the boys, are getting a vacation while their mother has to work and sing a lot. So that being said, I didn't technically break any of my rules, as the SS Tipton was established earlier on in the season, even though it was just one episode ago. Back in Mosby's office, Mr. Tipton will begin listing off all of the perks, like a sign-on bonus, traveling the world, living every day in paradise, and you know what? Mosby will actually start warming up to the idea, and I can even see him taking a jab such as, and there will be a refreshing lack of twins out there too. Something like that. But as quick as it came, he'll snap back to his old ways just for a moment, just long enough to try and discuss the fate of the hotel, to which Mr. Tipton will reply that he trusts that Mosby will name a fair successor. Now that Zack and Cody are back on the Tipton side, they'll burst through London's door to her penthouse there, and they'll say, you know what, we tried so hard, but we couldn't do it. Now everybody over at the St. Mark knows about you two. And London will be like, oh, are you sure? And Todd can hold up his phone and say, 30 missed calls from my dad. Yeah, pretty sure. In that moment, London can get a call from Mr. Mosby, and she'll put it on speakerphone, and basically he'll just say, hey, London, your dad's here, and we both want to speak to you about something very important. Can you please come down to the lobby? London assumes the worst. She thinks that she is going to lose Todd all over again. Unless she stands up to Mr. Mosby and her dad once and for all. So her, Todd, Zack, and Cody will storm out of her penthouse and downstairs. Back in the lobby, it is absolute chaos between Nia, Millicent, and Maddie. Ilsa is still chasing Arwen and Esteban around, trying to poach them. Mr. Mosby and Mr. Tipton will come out of Mosby's office and see all of this happening. Just as Mr. Mosby is about to intervene and stop all this mess, Team London comes out of the elevator. Before Mr. Mosby or Tipton can say anything, London jumps in. She says, yes, I'm dating Todd St. Mark, and no, I don't care about what you have to say about it. I'm happy, and that's all that matters. In that moment, Mr. St. Mark can come through the door. And I think it would be a funny situation to have him also be surrounded by a wall of meat men. Him and Mr. Tipton will badmouth each other across the room, and the whole thing can lead up to their security guards having a little slap fight. Just try and get physical, but nobody's actually willing to get in there, you know? As soon as they get physical, Todd and London will take this opportunity to both step in and intervene and say, guys, you're being ridiculous. We are happy, and you could take our money away. You could take everything away from us. We don't care. We just want each other, and that's the most important thing. And that will pretty much wrap up the B plot. As for the A plot, most people then take the opportunity of silence to announce that he is officially leaving the Tipton Hotel. Cody, being the more sensitive one, will prod a little bit, do a little digging, and ask if it's because of him and Zack that Mr. Mosby plans on moving on. And Zack will cut in and say, no, it's probably just due to the stresses of, you being a manager in the big city of Boston. And Mosby will smile at them and say, a little column A, a little column B. Mr. Mosby will then announce that his successor is going to be Esteban. Esteban has mentioned before in previous episodes that he always aspired to run his own hotel. I don't think it's explicitly mentioned, but I believe in the episode where the side characters look for a hidden treasure that was left in the hotel by an old mobster, that Esteban's money fantasy is running the Tipton as his own. I could be wrong about that, though. But that is my justification.
I'm busy owning this hotel.
Not after I find that money. Enjoy your stay at Hotel Esteban.
As for Mr. Mosby's justification, he will say that Esteban has matured and shown immense loyalty to the Tipton and wishes him the best as the new team leader. Here is where we wrap everything up, now with a nice little bow on it. Maddie, Nia, and Millicent will now come over to Esteban, being the new leader, and demand that he make a choice on who gets the hours over at the candy counter. Mr. Mosby, knowing that Maddie just wants the money so that she can pay for school, will offer up his sign-on bonus. He'll say that he knows it's not much, but it'll cover a semester or two. And just like something before that we've only seen Chef Paulo do, Maddie will officially quit running the candy counter.
I'm a quit!
The choice between Nia and Millicent is now an easy one for Esteban, but Mr. Mosby will interject one more time. He asks Nia what she wants the money for, and she is straight up with him that she doesn't want to live in his shadow anymore. She doesn't want to be a burden to anyone. She just wants to break out and do her own thing. She wants to be her own person. She doesn't want to be a burden to any other family members. She has become an adult. Mosby will then say that his job on the SS Tipton is 24/7, 365 days a year. So, he's going to need someone to take care of his apartment and water the plants. I feel like this move in particular would really show just how far Nia has come as a character in such a short amount of time, building up trust as fast as she possibly can. With her estranged family, Mr. Mosby was the change that she needed. And it all comes full circle back to that. Now that Nia no longer has to worry about how she's going to figure out how to pay rent and live in Boston, big city life, expensive apartments, that's no longer a problem for her. She can focus on enjoying what teenagehood she has left and finish off school. And you know what? I could actually see her maybe wanting to go into some sort of post-secondary education, doing something in security or police work. But regardless, it will then be Nia's turn to quit the Tipton because it's not what she wants to be doing. This leaves Millicent, and Esteban is not taking it very well. Millicent will be hurt by the words, knowing that she is the worst choice, and she does know it, but the words still hurt. She sort of expected someone to go to bat for her. I mean, after all, this is the part where Mr. Mosby would step in and change her life too, but no such luck. Esteban says that it was his plan to actually have Nia take over the candy counter, and, you know, with him being the manager now, Millicent would make an excellent bellhop. All of that fainting has really strengthened her back, and you need a tough back to do bellhoppery. Unfortunately for Esteban, he is now out of bellhop, but he does have a full-time candy counter girl. So that resolves the C-plot. This is where Ilsa will come in, tired of all the good feels. She has had enough. She will tell Mr. St. Mark not to be distracted by all of this chitter-chatter and to focus on the real reason that he came over here, separating Todd and London. Mr. St. Mark will, even though we haven't seen him very much as a character, he is a Jake's Draft original character. Mr. St. Mark will say something that Mr. Tipton should have probably told London a long time ago. Basically saying it's Todd's choice. He's an adult, and yeah, he's cut off, but if he chooses to live a life of mediocrity because of his choice in who he wants to love, then that's on him. It would also be a nice little moment for Mr. St. Mark to note that any girl who can make his little boy want to have nothing to do with the family fortune must be pretty special. And then Mr. St. Mark will make a fairly good point by saying, well, I know why we're here, but why are you here, Ilsa? Why are you over at the Tipton Hotel? Ilsa will then fumble her words, trying to find a lie somewhere in there, which she will come up with the obvious, hey, I found out about Todd in London earlier, and I came over here to put a stop to it. But Mr. Mosby has a little something to say about that. Mr. Mosby will step forward and tell Mr. St. Mark that Ilsa's actually here. She's been there all day, and she is over here a lot. And she is over here currently trying to poach some employees, which Arwen, standing over in the corner, and Esteban, newly promoted, will be able to defend that point. Mr. St. Mark will then turn to Ilsa and say that he can't have his manager be spending so much time over at the rival Tipton Hotel, especially to steal employees, first of all. Second of all, just in general, it looks unprofessional to have the manager of one hotel constantly over at another hotel. Even if it is to cause problems, that manager is still addicted to being in that other hotel. I do know in business ethics, it is very taboo to poach clients or employees from other places of business. So that is going to get Ilsa fired. I also think it would be a pretty funny commentary on the fact that big company CEOs will blow up a dolphin sanctuary and dump millions of liters of crude oil on top of birds and then light them on fire, but the line in the sand is poaching. They will not poach employees. That is a no-no. Everything else, free game. Feeling betrayed by the St. Mark family, Ilsa will ask where she's supposed to work now. Mosby can have the closing line of the show, saying, well, a position at the Tipton Hotel for bellhop has just become available. Everyone will laugh, and for the last time, those credits roll. There you have it. My attempt at my iteration of what the series finale of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody should be. I would like you guys to please be the judges. If you could rate my entire run of the show on a scale from
This is a disaster!
to, I would be greatly appreciative. It's taken quite a bit of time to put this video together. So if I was to do this again, like if this is something that you guys are interested in, this is something I could see myself doing maybe once a month. This video has just been such a process from start to finish, because I am learning new skills. I don't do this. I don't do the recording. I don't do the editing. It's not something I've done in many years, but so I'm on top of learning the new skills to be able to do these videos. I essentially need to watch a series from start to finish and take notes along the way and see if I can retain characters and, you know, this and that. And it is a lot of stuff to put together, because it's a lot of information that I have to take in. I have to know the characters, first of all. If I can't know the characters, then there's no way I'm going to be able to do a video on a finale of just any show out there. It is going to take time, just while I get my footing with this whole filming and editing thing. That's pretty much the hardest part. Literally, other than that, it's just me watching TV and taking some notes and trying to get some juices flowing. Like, I've got my writer brain going all the time when I'm watching television regardless, so that doesn't matter so much. But just while I'm learning these new skills, I would really appreciate some patience while these videos come out, because even though they are once a month, they may come out like there is no set time yet. So we will see. But I've got plenty of stuff in the works, whether it's movie reviews, React content. I'll figure something out so that this something that's shorter form that I can still practice this part with might actually be helpful. Now, in terms of watching shows, lucky for me, I did just finish watching The Sweet Life on Deck, Hannah Montana, and Lost. Those three, if you wanted to vote in the comments for which one of those I should do next, or if you have an original idea, post it, but that one will probably come out down the line, just because I do have to watch the entire run of the show, and I would appreciate it if it was a show that was over, so I can do the finale. If any of you were actually interested in watching me sit down and write the finale that we discussed in this video, I will be doing that live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Jacob_writes as my name on YouTube, just with an underscore there. Thank you again for sticking around to the end of the first episode of Jake's Draft. I do have to say, as a small creator, every little bit of interaction helps. So if you could like, if you could comment, if you could subscribe, follow, go over to the Twitch, do all that stuff, because every interaction lets the YouTube gods know that my video is worth shoving out into the ether for all to see. And every bit of interaction also, double-edged sword, lets me know that I'm doing something right. So I will continue to do those things. So if you could do that, that'd be fantastic. Thank you again. It means a lot to me that you stayed to the end of the video. Have a great day. And that's a wrap.